The private club occupies the penthouse of Geneva's oldest banking tower, a sanctuary of old money and older secrets, where membership is inherited rather than purchased, and where the greatest currency is not the Swiss franc, but discretion. Tonight, the Salon Doré hosts a gathering that will reshape energy markets across 3 continents. The chandeliers are Venetian, 18th century. The carpets are Persian, older still. The wine being poured costs more per bottle than most families spend on groceries in a month. Isadora Reyes moves through this world like a shadow wearing white gloves. She is 26 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a severe chignon and eyes the color of Armenian coffee, nearly black, impossibly deep. Her accent, when she speaks, carries traces of places most of these guests have only visited from the windows of chauffeured cars. The rolling vowels of her grandmother's Basque village, the precise consonants of the Parisian academy where she spent her teenage years, the melodic undertones of the Arabic she learned at her father's knee. To the members of the Salon Doré, her accent marks her as foreign. Other. Help. They do not know, cannot imagine, that the woman refilling their water glasses holds a master's degree in diplomatic translation from the Sorbonne, with highest honors. That she is certified by the United Nations as a simultaneous interpreter in 7 languages: French, Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian, German, and English. That her thesis on linguistic markers of deception in high-stakes diplomatic negotiations was cited by the International Court of Justice in 3 separate rulings. They see only the uniform, the accent, the woman who exists to serve and disappear. Isadora's path to this moment is paved with loss. Her father, Karim Reyes, was a Lebanese-Spanish translator who worked for decades at the European Parliament. Her mother, Amaya, was a Basque linguist who specialized in dying languages, the ones that existed only in the memories of grandmothers and the pages of academic journals. Together, they raised Isadora in a household where dinner conversation might shift between 4 languages in a single sentence, where words were treated as precious things, where understanding was the highest form of love. Her father died of a stroke 2 years ago, collapsing at his desk while translating a resolution on refugee rights. Her mother's Alzheimer's diagnosis came 3 months later. A cruel irony, the linguist losing her words one by one, like leaves falling from a winter tree. The care facility in San Sebastian costs €8,000 monthly. Insurance covers a fraction. The rest comes from Isadora's pockets, from the accumulated savings of 2 brilliant careers that somehow never produced wealth, from the work she does now in places like this. The UN position she was offered, senior interpreter, Arabic French-English desk, Geneva headquarters, required relocation within 30 days. Her mother could not be moved. The position could not be deferred. Isadora made her choice, the only choice a daughter could make, and watched her career evaporate like morning fog over Lake Geneva. Now she works events, private dinners, corporate gatherings, places where her language skills occasionally prove useful for basic hospitality, directing a confused guest to the restroom in their native tongue, translating a menu item, smoothing over the small frictions that arise when the world's elite gather to divide the world's resources. She is paid well enough to keep her mother comfortable. She is invisible enough to keep her dignity intact. The irony is not lost on her. She spent years studying how powerful people deceive each other across language barriers, the subtle mistranslations that shift meaning, the cultural assumptions that create exploitable gaps, the way silence in one language can mean consent in another. Her thesis examined dozens of failed negotiations, collapsed treaties, and exposed frauds, tracing each back to the moment when someone assumed they were the only one in the room who truly understood what was being said. Most nights, this is enough. Tonight, she senses, will be different. The energy in the Salon Doré crackles with something more than the usual self-satisfaction of wealth. The guests speak in lowered voices. The security is heavier than normal. Men with earpieces stationed at every entrance, eyes scanning constantly. Something significant is about to happen in this room, and Isadora, invisible in her server's uniform, will witness every moment of it. She checks her reflection in the polished silver of a wine cooler. Her face reveals nothing. Her eyes miss nothing. Her ears, trained through thousands of hours of simultaneous interpretation, are already cataloging every whispered conversation within range. The guests begin to arrive. They enter in the particular order that power dictates. The lesser players first, establishing presence before the true titans arrive. Isadora watches from her station near the service entrance, cataloging faces against the briefing materials she memorized this morning. First, the Deutsche Energie contingent. 3 executives in identical charcoal suits, speaking rapid German about quarterly projections. Their body language suggests anxiety beneath the professional veneer. They are sellers tonight, not buyers, and they know their position is weak. Next, the delegation from China National Petroleum. 2 men and 1 woman, the woman clearly senior, despite walking half a step behind. They speak Mandarin with Beijing accents, discussing internal politics Isadora follows with half an ear. The woman, Vice President Zhang Wei, is the decision-maker. The men are decorative. Then the Russian contingent, Gazprom's European liaison team, speaking in the particular dialect of Moscow's business elite. Russian peppered with English financial terms and French cultural references. They position themselves near the bar, watching everything, committing to nothing. And finally, commanding the room simply by entering it. Viktor Antonovich Volkov, 61 years old. Net worth, approximately $43 billion, though the true number is unknowable, buried in shell companies and sovereign wealth funds, and the kind of financial structures that exist specifically to be opaque. He controls energy infrastructure across Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and increasingly, Africa. Governments rise and fall based on his pipeline decisions. His influence with the Kremlin is the subject of endless speculation in intelligence circles. Forbes calls him the man who keeps Europe's lights on. His critics, those brave or foolish enough to criticize publicly, call him other things. He enters with an entourage of 6, lawyers, advisors, and a personal translator. A thin, nervous man who hovers at Volkov's elbow like an anxious ghost. Volkov himself is surprisingly compact, almost grandfatherly in appearance, with silver hair and a face that might be kind if the eyes were different. The eyes are not kind. The eyes are the color of winter ice on the Moskva River, and they see everything they choose to see and nothing they choose to ignore. Isadora approaches with a tray of champagne, moving through the invisible servant's choreography. Present the tray, eyes down, disappear. Volkov takes a glass without looking at her. One of his advisors does look, and what he sees is a pretty young woman with an interesting face and a servant's uniform. Volkov's advisor, in Russian, to Volkov. The Deutsche Energie people look nervous. Good, nervous sellers make generous terms. Volkov, in Russian. The Chinese concern me more. Zhang Wei did not travel from Beijing for a social dinner. She wants something specific. Find out what before the main course. Isadora's expression does not change. Her hands remain steady on the tray. But internally, her mind is racing, filing away the exchange, cross-referencing it against everything she knows about tonight's gathering. She moves to the German delegation next, offering champagne with a polite smile. One of the executives, a younger man, perhaps 40, with the desperate energy of someone whose career depends on tonight's outcome, attempts to take a glass and fumbles, nearly spilling. Isadora, softly, in German. Careful, sir. The bubbles can be tricky. Her German is flawless. Hochdeutsch, with the faintest Austrian undertone, learned during summers with her mother's colleagues in Vienna. The executive blinks, surprised to hear his language from a server's lips, but before he can respond, a voice cuts across the room. Volkov, in English, loudly. You there, the girl with the champagne. Isadora turns. Every eye in the room follows her movement. Volkov is smiling, but it is not a pleasant smile. Volkov. Come here. She approaches, tray balanced perfectly, face composed into the pleasant neutrality that service work demands. Volkov studies her with open curiosity, the way one might examine an interesting insect. Volkov. You speak German to my colleagues. Do they teach languages in Waitress school now? Laughter ripples through the room, the uncomfortable laughter of people who recognize cruelty but lack the courage to oppose it. Isadora feels her cheeks warm, but her voice remains steady. Isadora. I learned German as a child, sir. My mother was a linguist. Volkov, mimicking her accent, exaggerating. My Mozart was a linguist. How charming. Tell me, what other party tricks do you have? Can you count to 10 in Spanish? Sing Frère Jacques? More laughter, louder now. The German executives look away. The Chinese delegation watches with expressions of carefully calibrated neutrality. Only Vice President Jiang Wei meets Isadora's eyes, and in that brief contact, Isadora sees something that might be recognition or sympathy. Isadora, quietly. Would you like more champagne, sir? Volkov, waving dismissively. Go away and try not to murder the English language while you serve dinner. Some of us are trying to conduct business. Isadora withdraws. Her hands do not shake. Her face betrays nothing. But something has shifted inside her, a cold, clear flame that her father would have recognized, that her mother, in her lucid moments, still calls the Reyes stubbornness. She has been dismissed. She has been mocked. She has been made invisible in the cruelest possible way, not by being ignored, but by being seen and found worthless. She retreats to the service station and begins preparing for dinner service. Her ears remain open. Her mind remains sharp. And when Volkov's phone rings 30 minutes later, a ringtone she recognizes as the opening bars of a Russian folk song, she is ready. Dinner has been served. A 7-course progression of European refinement designed to lubricate negotiations. The first course, a delicate amuse-bouche of foie gras with sauterne gelée. The conversation around the table is equally delicate, probing for positions without committing to them. Isadora serves, she clears, she refills wine glasses and replaces silverware and performs the 100 small tasks that keep a dinner of this caliber running smoothly. And she listens. The Germans are desperate. Their energy division is hemorrhaging money since the pipeline sanctions, and they need Volkov's Caspian gas routes to remain viable. They are offering favorable terms on transit fees, infrastructure investment, long-term contracts. The Chinese are patient. Vice President Jiang Wei speaks rarely, but when she does, the room adjusts to accommodate her words. She is interested in African assets, Volkov's newly acquired natural gas fields in Mozambique, but she frames her interest as casual curiosity rather than strategic necessity. Volkov plays them against each other with practiced ease. He hints to the Germans that Chinese investment might solve their transit problems. He suggests to the Chinese that German technology might accelerate African development. He is conducting an auction without calling it one, and both parties are bidding blind. Between courses, Volkov excuses himself to take a phone call. He steps to the far corner of the room, still visible but out of conversational range, and answers in rapid Russian. His personal translator hovers nearby, but Volkov waves him away. The conversation is private. Isadora is clearing the second course plates. Her position places her within 6 meters of Volkov, close enough for her trained ears to catch every word. Volkov, in Russian. Yes, everything is proceeding. The Germans are desperate. The Chinese are interested. By morning, we will have commitments from both. No, they suspect nothing. The Mozambique environmental reports have been adjusted. The seismic data is buried. By the time anyone discovers the instability issues, the contracts will be signed, and the money will be ours. Yes, I understand the timeline. The drilling will begin before the rainy season, before any independent assessment can be conducted. Isadora's blood runs cold. Her hands continue their automatic work, stack the plates, balance the tray, move toward the service entrance. But her mind is parsing every word of what she has just heard. Adjusted environmental reports, buried seismic data, instability issues. She understands enough about energy infrastructure to know what this means. The Mozambique gas fields that Volkov is selling to the Chinese, and possibly the Germans as infrastructure partners, are built on a lie. The geological surveys have been falsified. The environmental risks have been hidden. Whoever buys into these fields is purchasing a disaster waiting to happen. Volkov continues his call, switching suddenly to Mandarin, rougher than his Russian, but competent. Isadora's ears adjust automatically, her brain processing the tonal language with the same fluency. Volkov, in Mandarin. Tell Minister Zhao that the timeline is firm. Once Jiang Wei signs the memorandum tonight, the preliminary payment must be wired within 72 hours. No extensions. The offshore accounts in Singapore are ready. Singapore offshore accounts. Preliminary payments before due diligence. Isadora recognizes the pattern. Her father spent years translating corruption investigations for the European Parliament. This is not a business negotiation. This is a fraud conducted at scale, designed to extract billions from sophisticated investors who trust that someone of Volkov's stature would not dare to deceive them so brazenly. She thinks of the communities in Mozambique who were promised development, jobs, infrastructure. She thinks of the workers who will be hired to drill in geologically unstable formations, unaware of the danger beneath their feet. She thinks of the environmental catastrophe that will unfold when the concealed instability finally manifests. The spills, the contamination, the devastation that will fall hardest on people who have no voice in boardrooms like this one. This is not just financial fraud. This is a crime against people who will never sit at tables like this, who will never sip champagne that costs more than their monthly wages, who will bear the consequences of decisions made by men who see them as abstractions in profit calculations. Volkov ends his call and returns to the table, his grandfatherly smile firmly in place. The third course arrives, a perfectly seared Dover sole with brown butter and capers. The conversation resumes its careful dance of implication and inference. Isadora serves the fish with steady hands and a racing heart. She has perhaps 2 hours before Vice President Jiang Wei signs whatever memorandum Volkov has prepared. 2 hours before billions of Chinese investment capital flow into geological disaster. 2 hours before Volkov's fraud becomes irreversible. She could say nothing. She is nobody, a waitress with an accent that powerful men mock for entertainment. Even if she spoke, who would believe her? She has no evidence beyond her own ears, her own training, her own certainty about what she heard. But she thinks of her father, who spent his life believing that words matter, that truth, properly translated, can change the world, that understanding across languages is the foundation of justice between peoples. She thinks of her mother, who devoted her career to preserving languages that the world deemed worthless, the tongues of small villages and forgotten peoples, because she believed that every voice deserves to be heard. And she thinks of herself, Isadora Reyes, summa cum laude, Sorbonne, UN-certified interpreter in 7 languages, a woman whose accent was mocked by a man who believes his money makes him untouchable. She makes her decision. During the fourth course, she approaches the head server and requests a brief break. A personal matter, 5 minutes. She will return before the cheese course. He agrees reluctantly. She slips into the service corridor and pulls out her phone. Her contact at the International Energy Agency answers on the second ring. Isadora speaks quickly, in French, outlining what she has heard. The contact, a former colleague from her Sorbonne days who now works in regulatory compliance, listens without interruption. IEA contact, in French. Isadora, if what you're saying is accurate, this is criminal fraud on an international scale, but you have no documentation, only what you overheard. Isadora, in French. I know, but if someone were to request the original seismic surveys from the Mozambique Licensing Authority, the ones filed before Volkov's team adjusted them, they would show the geological instability. The evidence exists. Someone just needs to know where to look. She ends the call and returns to the dining room. The fifth course is being served, a rack of lamb with a rosemary reduction. Volkov is deep in conversation with Vice President Jiang Wei, their discussion animated, their body language suggesting imminent agreement. Isadora has planted a seed. But seeds take time to grow, and Jiang Wei's pen is moving toward paper tonight. She needs something faster, something immediate, something that will make the powerful stop and listen to a woman they have dismissed as invisible. And then Volkov's phone rings again. Volkov glances at his phone, frowns, and silences it. The call goes to voicemail. He returns to his conversation with Jiang Wei, but 30 seconds later, the phone rings again. Same number, same insistent tone. Volkov, irritated, in English. Excuse me, I must take this. He steps away from the table, but this time he does not retreat to the far corner. He remains within earshot, clearly intending to keep the call brief. He answers in Russian, his voice clipped with annoyance. But the voice on the other end is not speaking Russian. It is speaking Arabic, rapid, formal, with the particular cadence of Gulf diplomatic communication. Volkov's translator, caught off guard, fumbles with his phone, trying to access a translation app. Isadora is pouring wine for one of the German executives. She hears every word from the phone speaker. Volkov has it pressed to his ear, but his hearing is not what it once was, and the volume is high enough for anyone close to catch fragments. Arabic, from phone. The Qatari Energy Ministry has received preliminary inquiries regarding your Mozambique concessions. There are concerns about the geological assessments. The minister wishes to discuss before any regional investment decisions are finalized. Isadora's contact has moved fast, faster than she expected. The seed she planted has already reached diplomatic channels, and now Volkov's scheme is facing scrutiny from an unexpected direction. Volkov's face darkens. He snaps something in Russian to his translator, who shakes his head helplessly. Arabic is not among his languages. Volkov looks around the room, seeking anyone who might assist, and his eyes land on Isadora. For a moment, their gazes lock. She sees calculation in his expression, the memory of his earlier mockery warring with his immediate need. Volkov, grudgingly, in English. You, the girl who speaks German, do you speak Arabic? Every head at the table turns. The Germans, the Chinese, the Russians. All watching the waitress who was mocked for her accent, now being asked to serve in a different capacity entirely. Isadora sets down her wine bottle. She walks toward Volkov with measured steps, her heart pounding but her face serene. This is the moment her father trained her for without knowing it, the moment her mother's dedication to languages prepared her to seize. Isadora, in flawless Gulf Arabic, directly into the phone. Good evening. To whom am I speaking, please? The voice on the phone responds with evident surprise and relief. Finally, someone who speaks properly. The conversation continues in Arabic, and Isadora translates for Volkov in real time, her voice smooth and professional. Isadora, translating. The caller represents the Qatari Energy Ministry. They have received information suggesting that the geological surveys for your Mozambique concessions may have been altered. They are requesting the original documentation before proceeding with any regional coordination discussions. Volkov's face drains of color. He snatches the phone from near Isadora's ear and ends the call abruptly, his composure cracking for the first time all evening. Volkov, in Russian, to his advisor. How do they know? Who talked? Find out who talked. Isadora, in perfect Russian. You might want to be more careful about what you say on phone calls, Mr. Volkov. Some waitresses understand more than you assume. The room goes utterly silent. Volkov stares at her as though she has sprouted wings. His advisor's mouth falls open. The translator actually takes a step backward, as if proximity to this moment might contaminate him. Volkov, in Russian, voice low and dangerous. What did you say? Isadora, continuing in Russian. I said you should be more careful. Earlier this evening, you discussed adjusted environmental reports, buried seismic data, and instability issues regarding your Mozambique fields. You did this in Russian, assuming no one in the room understood. You were wrong. She turns to Vice President Zhang Wei and switches to Mandarin, her pronunciation precise, her tones perfect. Isadora, in Mandarin. Vice President Zhang, Mr. Volkov also made a call in Mandarin regarding your pending agreement. He discussed preliminary payments, Singapore offshore accounts, and a 72-hour wire transfer timeline. He intends to collect your money before any legitimate due diligence can be conducted. Zhang Wei's expression shifts from neutral observation to cold fury. She turns to Volkov with eyes that could freeze the Yangtze River. Zhang Wei, in Mandarin, to Isadora. You are certain of what you heard? Isadora, in Mandarin. I am UN certified in simultaneous interpretation. I have testified as an expert linguistic witness in international courts. I am certain, Vice President. Isadora turns to the German delegation and switches to German. Isadora, in German. Gentlemen, any infrastructure investment you make in Mr. Volkov's Mozambique fields will be built on falsified geological surveys. The seismic instability has been deliberately concealed. Your engineers will discover this, but not before your capital is committed and non-recoverable. She turns finally to the room at large and speaks in English, her voice carrying the authority of absolute certainty. Isadora, Mr. Volkov has been conducting this entire negotiation under the assumption that language barriers would protect his deception. He discussed fraud in Russian. He coordinated financial crimes in Mandarin. He assumed that a waitress with an accent could not possibly understand the sophisticated schemes being orchestrated over her head. She pauses, meeting Volkov's eyes directly. Isadora, he was wrong. I speak 7 languages, Mr. Volkov. I understood every word you said tonight, every lie, every scheme, every assumption that your wealth made you untouchable. Volkov, exploding. This is absurd. This woman she's staff. She's nobody. You cannot possibly take her word over mine. Zhang Wei, in English, cutting him off. Mr. Volkov, I watched you mock this woman's accent 2 hours ago. I watched you dismiss her as beneath your notice. I wondered then what kind of man humiliates service workers for amusement. Now I know. She stands, gathering her documents with precise, deliberate movements. Zhang Wei, China. National Petroleum will be conducting its own independent geological assessment of your Mozambique concessions. Until that assessment is complete, all negotiations are suspended, indefinitely. The room erupts into chaos. The German executives are on their phones, speaking rapidly to their headquarters in Berlin. The Russian contingent has retreated to a corner, engaged in what appears to be a fierce internal debate about damage control. Volkov's lawyers are gathered around him like anxious physicians around a dying patient. Volkov, to his legal team, in Russian, "This changes nothing. It's her word against mine. I'll have her fired. I'll have her arrested for corporate espionage, for violating confidentiality." Volkov's lawyer, in Russian, grimly, "Viktor Antonovich, she did not record anything. She did not steal documents. She simply listened. There is no law against understanding languages. And if the Qataris are already asking questions about the surveys," he does not finish the sentence. He does not need to. The implications are clear. The fraud that was designed to be invisible, hidden behind language barriers and the assumed incompetence of service workers, has been exposed by the very mechanisms meant to conceal it. Vice President Zhang Wei approaches Isadora. The Chinese executive's face is still stern, but there is respect in her eyes, the recognition of competence in unexpected places. "Zhang Wei," in Mandarin, "you took a significant risk. Volkov is not a man who forgives easily." Isadora, in Mandarin, "Some things matter more than safety, Vice President. My father taught me that truth, properly spoken, can change the world. Tonight, I proved him right." Zhang Wei nods slowly. She reaches into her portfolio and produces a business card, heavy stock, embossed with the seal of China National Petroleum. Zhang Wei, in Mandarin, "We will speak again, Ms. Reyes. People who see clearly and speak truthfully are rare commodities in my world." She departs with her delegation. The Germans follow shortly after, their consortium's participation in any Volkov-connected venture clearly finished. The Russian contingent slips away without farewells, distancing themselves from a sinking ship with practiced efficiency. Within 20 minutes, Viktor Volkov stands alone in the Salon Doré, surrounded by the wreckage of an empire, built on the assumption that power speaks only one language at a time. His phone is ringing continuously, calls from partners, from regulators, from journalists who have somehow already caught wind of the evening's events. He does not answer. He stands frozen, staring at the space where Isadora stood when she dismantled his schemes with nothing but words and the courage to speak them. An hour later, the Salon Doré has emptied, except for the cleanup crew and one unexpected guest. Isadora is collecting discarded napkins and abandoned wine glasses when she realizes she is not alone. Marcus Thorne, founder and chairman of the Thorne Foundation, stands by the windows overlooking Lake Geneva. He was not part of tonight's principal negotiations. His role was that of a silent observer, a potential co-investor whose commitment Volkov had been quietly courting. Isadora had served him twice during dinner, noting his watchful silence and the intelligence in his pale gray eyes. 64 years old. Net worth, 12 billion, built from nothing through telecommunications infrastructure across emerging markets. Unlike Volkov, Thorne's fortune was constructed transparently, his business practices subjected to constant scrutiny that he welcomed rather than evaded. He is known for ethical investment, for philanthropic commitment, for treating every employee, from executives to janitorial staff, with identical respect. He is also, Isadora now notices, watching her with undisguised curiosity. Marcus Thorne, in French. "You handled that remarkably well. His French is excellent, Parisian inflected, the product of education rather than birthright." Isadora straightens from her cleaning work, surprised to be addressed. Isadora, in French. "I did what needed to be done, nothing more." Marcus Thorne, switching to Spanish. "Modesty, admirable, but unnecessary. You exposed a fraud that my own due diligence teams missed, and I pay them considerably more than you earn serving wine." Isadora responds automatically in Spanish, matching his Castilian accent with her own blend of influences. Isadora, in Spanish. Your teams were not in the room when Volkov assumed he could speak freely. I was, Marcus Thorne, in German now. And you understood every word, in Russian, Mandarin, Arabic, German, French, Spanish, and English. That is 7 languages, yes? Isadora, in German. You have been paying attention. Marcus Thorne, smiling slightly. I always pay attention to exceptional people. It is how I built my company. Tell me about yourself, Ms. Isadora Reyes. Isadora Reyes, she tells him. Not everything, not yet, but enough. The Sorbonne, the UN certification, the thesis on linguistic deception markers, her father's career at the European Parliament, her mother's dedication to dying languages, the stroke, the Alzheimer's, the impossible choice between career and family. Marcus Thorne listens, without interruption. When she finishes, he is quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the lights of Geneva reflected in the lake below. Marcus Thorne. Your mother, she is comfortable? The care she receives is adequate? Isadora, surprised by the question. She is as comfortable as I can afford. The facility in San Sebastian is excellent. The cost is significant, but I manage. Marcus Thorne. You manage by working jobs far beneath your qualifications, while men like Viktor Volkov mock your accent for entertainment. You sacrifice your brilliance to pay bills that should not exist in a just world. It is not a question. It is a statement of fact, delivered with the quiet certainty of a man who has seen injustice and chosen to oppose it. Isadora. I do what is necessary. My parents sacrificed for me. Now I sacrifice for my mother. This is what family means. Marcus Thorne. And what if sacrifice was no longer necessary? What if your brilliance could serve both your family and your calling? Marcus Thorne turns from the window to face her fully. His expression is businesslike, but there is warmth beneath, the recognition of kinship between people who value integrity above convenience. Marcus Thorne. The Thorne Foundation operates across 47 countries. We negotiate infrastructure projects with governments, development agencies, private partners. We employ translators and interpreters, of course, but none of them have your combination of linguistic range, analytical training, and moral courage. Isadora, carefully. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Thorne? Marcus Thorne. I want you to lead a new division within the Foundation, Global Communications Integrity. Your mandate would be to ensure that every negotiation we conduct is honest, that our partners say what they mean and mean what they say, regardless of what language they're speaking or what language they think we don't understand. Isadora's breath catches. This is not a job offer. This is a transformation, a doorway from the shadows into the light she was always meant to occupy. Marcus Thorne. The position is based in Geneva, so you would not need to relocate far from your mother. The starting salary is 300,000 euros annually, with performance incentives tied to successful fraud prevention and negotiation outcomes. The foundation will also establish a medical care trust to cover your mother's expenses in full. Consider it an investment in your focus. Isadora, voice unsteady. Mr. Thorne, this is extraordinarily generous, but Marcus Thorne, gently. You are not accustomed to being seen. I understand. But I saw you tonight. I saw a woman who stood alone against one of the most powerful men in Europe and spoke truth in 7 languages until even he could not deny what he had done. That is not a waitress with an accent. That is a force of nature, improperly deployed. Isadora feels tears threatening at the corners of her eyes. She blinks them back, maintaining the composure that has carried her through 3 years of invisibility. Isadora, I have conditions. Marcus Thorne, slight smile. I would expect nothing less. Isadora. Full autonomy over my team's methodology. Direct access to you and the board on matters of integrity. Veto authority over any partnership I determine to be fundamentally deceptive. regardless of financial implications. Marcus Thorne agreed. The foundation's reputation is worth more than any single deal. What else? Isadora. A scholarship program named after my parents, Karim and Amaya Reyes. Full funding for students from underrepresented backgrounds pursuing advanced degrees in translation, interpretation, and diplomatic linguistics. The people who might become what I almost lost the chance to become. Marcus Thorne, the Karim and Amaya Reyes Scholarship for Linguistic Excellence. The foundation will endow it with €5 million, supporting 10 full scholarships annually in perpetuity. Now the tears do fall. Isadora does not wipe them away. They are earned, they are sacred. They carry the weight of everything she has lost and everything she is about to reclaim. She thinks of her father at his desk in the European Parliament, translating resolutions that would protect refugees, immigrants, the dispossessed, people whose voices needed amplification across borders. She thinks of her mother in dusty archives, recording the last speakers of languages that the modern world had deemed obsolete, preserving words that contained entire philosophies of existence. They gave their lives to the belief that understanding across difference was the foundation of justice. Now their names will live on in the students who will carry that mission forward. Young people from villages like her grandmother's, from immigrant families like her father's, from communities that the powerful have always ignored. They will receive the training Isadora received, the opportunities Isadora nearly lost. They will become the voices that speak truth across every barrier, in every language, forever. Isadora. One more thing. Marcus Thorne. Name it. Isadora. I want Viktor Volkov to know that the woman he mocked tonight is the one who will ensure he never deceives anyone through language barriers again. I want him to know that every deal he attempts, in any language, will be scrutinized by someone who understands exactly what he's saying. Marcus Thorne, extending his hand. Ms. Reyes, I believe you and I are going to accomplish remarkable things together. And yes, Mr. Volkov will learn exactly who brought down his empire of deception, in every language he speaks. Isadora takes his hand. Her grip is firm, her eyes are clear. She is no longer the woman who pours wine and endures mockery and disappears into the background of other people's power. She is Isadora Reyes, Sorbonne Honors graduate, UN-certified interpreter in 7 languages, head of Global Communications Integrity for the Thorne Foundation. She is the voice that speaks truth across every border, the ear that hears deception in any tongue, the woman who transforms the weapon of her accent into a shield for the honest and a sword against the corrupt. She carries within her the legacy of parents who believed that words could change the world, and tonight she proved them right. Her father would be proud. Her mother, somewhere in the fog of her fading memories, would understand. And the world of powerful men who assume their secrets are safe behind walls of language, will never be quite the same.